Let's talk about influencers today versus influence when you first wrote influence. And so we've got a whole category of people that want to be famous. And there's a lot of pursuit of status. And look at me. And it's quite seductive because I like it when people think I'm cool. I like it when people admire me. And I also know there's an ego there that could get misinformed by thinking I'm so damn special because, let's take, for instance, that video. We show this video, right? So someone made a movie about my life. That propaganda piece was not created by me. It was actually done by one of my clients. And made a movie about me, which was, I was worried because I was like, oh, is this going to be sort of a fluff piece? And of course, it's got social proof. That's a perfect example of positioning. And so I think of marketing as anything you put in front of somebody is marketing. How do you position yourself, right? So we know each other, gave everyone a copy of my book, show a video, there's that sort of stuff. So there's this whole world of influence. Look at me, look at me, look at me. What's the dark side of it?
Of influencer?
Yeah, of being an influencer, of going out and being famous. I mean, you've got a lot of fame and notoriety in your world, not like, movie stars sort of a celebrity where you can't, walk into a restaurant without having everyone notice you. But
right.
you're quite a known human, right? And you see what fame does to people, good ways and bad ways, how to leverage it and how it could be destructive. So I'd like to get your perspective on it.
Yeah, the takeaway for me is to use as the metric how famous I am rather than why I am famous. Mm-hmm. So if you're in competition with your rivals for more fame, right, rather than for what you're providing to your audience, and then you're working just to get the profile up there,
right?
Then it's all empty calories now that you're giving people, right? It's just your glow. Right? And that's not enough, just the glow. There has to be some reason that you're glowing, the real merits of the light you're providing to the world.
Yeah, that's a really good point because it is. It's like empty calories if you just and you can game the system. And there's a lot of people that are gaming the system. A lot of it is purely vanity, but there's not a lot of substance. So if who do you consider a true influencer, if you could name?
I have just been at the Berkshire Hathaway meetings. Charlie Munger was no longer there. He's Warren Buffett's partner. And Warren Buffett is a true influencer of opinion and activity in the way that he presents himself as being truly concerned about the welfare of his stock, of his shareholders, and beyond that, the company as a whole. And I saw something there that almost made me weep. If you've ever been to these meetings, there were 47,000 people in an auditorium in Omaha, where the Berkshire Hathaway. By the way, a single share of Berkshire Hathaway stock is on this morning's New York Stock Exchange is worth $610,000. A share. A share. There's never been anything like it in our markets. And one of the reasons that that's the case is not only are they amazing financial analysts, they know that the market is not made up of econometric models, it's made up of people. And when they send out communications, they have studied human psychology before they do that. They are experts at communication, experts at connection, experts at giving people cues of honest information. So for example, Warren Buffett on the first page of all of his annual shareholder letters mentions something that went wrong that year, something that went wrong. And then he says, but, you've heard that here, but. And then he mentions the strengths. Well, now you believe the strengths because he's shown himself to be an honest person who's willing to mention the drawbacks, right? So he does that sort of thing. But there's the thing that almost made me weep. His partner, Charlie Munger, was called the the brainiac of the company. Warren says that he was the architect of Berkshire Hathaway. And at these meetings, they would sit on a stage, and there'd be this crowd of thousands upon thousands of people, and they would take questions. And Warren would always take the question and then take the first swing at it. And then he'd turn it over to Charlie. Right? Charlie died last year at 99 years and 11 months. He missed by a month. Right? Just before, it was in December, so just before the Berkshire Hathaway meetings by a couple of months, a few months. And so Warren would take the questions, and then he would turn it over to Charlie. And Charlie would usually answer with a single, very acerbic line that was funny. So everybody waited for that. And this time, I think it was the second question, Warren got it, and he finished answering. And there were a couple of executives on the stage with him instead of Charlie. So he finished, and he turned and he said, "Charlie?"
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
The place fell silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Charlie was still there. 50 years later, Charlie was still in his memory and in his psychological space. Charlie was there. Yeah, that's the kind of connections that you were talking about. Yeah.
You know, you got your wife over here. You got your granddaughter. You got a lot of people in your world that you care about deeply. What's the best way to influence love?
Give it. Give it. Warren Buffett, you know, he said the best, this is Charlie Munger, the way to be the best spouse is to earn it. And then you get the best spouse in return.
Wow.
Earn it. That's how you get love. You earn it.
That's great.
You show people the approval you definitely feel of them. You don't hide it. You don't try to worry about hierarchies and so on. You earn their love.
Yeah, you know, I think that's where a lot of marketers and a lot of people that just try to look at the technique, because, you know, you talk about the science, there is an art and a bit of science, right? It's using both of them, and one becomes skilled in these methodologies by integrating them, not just doing them or parroting them, but just actually going out into the real world and doing it. I mean, if you take a guy who wants to figure out how to meet women, you can read every pickup book, every book in the world about what to say and how to say, but if you never go out there and just meet people and talk and interact and show up in a certain way, it's you may have a lot of knowledge, but it doesn't mean it's integrated into your world. So everyone here has been through 2 days of training here. What advice would you give them on, okay, here's how to make it part of you?
Well, it's in doing some things that you can't do a scientific experiment, but you can try different forms of connection, for example, different forms of showing approval or affection and so on, and see which one fits best with the person that you're dealing with. Because not everybody's the same. The audiences will change. Yeah. But the concept of everybody wanting to have approval or relationships or closeness or trust and so on, you can provide different forms of it and see which ones resonate. So it's kind of like being an experimenter, trying different things out and then selecting the one that has the greatest resonance with the people that you're dealing with.
Yeah. And what about fear? What if someone's scared? What if someone's worried about rejection? What if they're not quite there yet. How do you deal with fear?
Yeah. So, I mean, how do I deal with fear as somebody who's...
If you've been afraid to approach someone or say something, or someone's utilizing the methods that you have taught so well on you, and you kind of are like, oh my God, you're just, you don't want to be offensive. You also don't want to be rejected. You want to get what you want, but you also, there's this resistance that you may have. How's that play out in your head?
We actually talked about it in an earlier presentation. I don't mind somebody using my principles on me as long as they're doing it ethically, as long as they're honestly representing the state of affairs. And then the way to overcome your fear, I'm blanking on the woman's name, you probably know it, who wrote a book called 3-2-1. What's her name? No. Anyway, she says when you're afraid to interact with somebody, right, or afraid, she was saying, I saw this guy that I really wanted to meet for a job that I had and so on, but he was elevated high. And she said, here's what I tell myself. 3, 2, 1, and then you do it.
Mel Robbins has a 5-second rule.
That's it, 5 seconds. So maybe 4 or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mel Robbins, that's who it is.
I think 3 is even better.
Yeah,
you beat her by 2 seconds.
You do it. I mean, that's right. Otherwise, that guy might be out
she's wasting 2 seconds on her completely.
Yeah, but I mean, just give yourself a starting gun,
right.
Essentially. Start, go.
Yep.
Somebody was asking me, I think it was Pratif, what are the things, the symbols that you can give? We were talking about how you get people to want to change, right? So what are the things that are associated with change? One thing we talked about was at the beginning of a period of time, right? And what symbols could we use to put in an email or a message that stimulates the idea of change? There's actually been some research on this. The number one image that leads people to be put in the mindset of change, it's a sunrise. A sunrise. We can put that in our messaging. We can put that in our PowerPoint decks. We can put that in our subject lines, right? And number 2, you know how in the movies, at the start of a scene, there's a clapper? Clap! Start the scene. That's the number 2 one that's associated with the motivations and the intents to change. Yeah. Clap, start. That's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go. Yeah.
That's good.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
So let me ask you this, Chris. So what's the most valuable negotiation technique or strategy that you've ever learned, and why is it so valuable? Because you know a lot of them.
One of the simplest ones. All right, let's go with simplest. Mirroring, repeating the last 3 words of what someone just said.
The last 3 words?
Yeah, the last 3 words. Just repeat the nice job, Dean. I know what you're doing to me. I know what you're doing.
How dare you? Just fell for it right away without even.
How dare you? How dare you put me on me? Nice. If you can master that skill, because a lot of times you just need some time to think. Everybody says, boy, now that I'm thinking about it, I know what I wish I would have said. Or now that I'm thinking about it, now I see what I missed. That mirror technique, the last 3 words, buys you that time in the moment without the other side realizing that's what you're doing. Because they're going to go on, they're going to talk some more. They're going to add a lot in. One of the crazy things about the mirror technique is it's a preferred move of the people that possess both a high IQ and a high EQ. Now, I cannot explain why that is the case. I can speculate on it. I think if they are high in both areas, they love the simplicity of it and the lack of effort, and they're data loving people. So they love how little they have to do to get a bunch of information out of the other side. But that's probably the single most valuable thing that you could learn, simply.
Very good. Very good. Well, so we've talked about this one before, but it's always so important because you've helped so many people just with this one. So why is the word no more important than yes? And if you could give an example.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So the key to negotiation, it's not about you. You know, we hear this all the time, but here, you hear no, and you go like, oh my God. Oh my God. I hate no. I hate being told no. I think we get that conditioned. Every child on earth, regardless of the language, what's the first word they learn? No. Because they get told no, and they get pointed at them, and no, don't do that. No, no, no. So we get it beat into or hardwired into us. So when we hear it, something horrible has just happened. But the flip side, the person who's saying it feels protected and safe. And they calm down and they relax. They feel like they just protected themselves. The other thing too is you can say no when you're tired and then immediately contribute to the conversation and think things through really quickly. So it's completely different. If it's about them, people love to say no. They feel, and they're gonna say a bunch more afterwards. Mm-hmm. You know, I got a couple no stories that I love, but I'll tell one of my favorites, Robert Herjavec. We're negotiating with Robert Herjavec's crew over how many tickets they're going to buy for one of our training events. I've already offered him one. His response for free. His response to the one for free was, how many can we buy? Not how many more free ones can we get? I'm a huge Robert Herjavec fan based on my interaction with him. I find him to be a generous, decent human being. So we're going back and forth, and the event is getting ready to sell out. And my son, Brandon, who runs my company, he calls me on the phone late in the day. I'm in LA. He says, you get Herjavec to commit to how many tickets they're going to buy now, or they're going to be sold out by the time the sun rises in New York tomorrow, because my son's on East Coast time. We're getting ready to sell the event out. And Brandon says, and if he doesn't buy any, I'm selling a ticket that we're supposed to be giving him for free. So I'm like, all right, I got to cut this deal. Now it's 5 o'clock in LA. When was the last time you tried to get a hard decision out of somebody at 5 o'clock? At 5:03, and also an email. At 5:03, I sent a 2-line email to Robert Herjavec. Is it a ridiculous idea for you to commit to buying 3 tickets now? Second line, are you against paying for them before the business day starts in New York tomorrow? Again, we're 3 hours behind New York. The time stamp on his email response is 5:04, 1 minute later. Mm-hmm. No, we'll commit to the 3 tickets right now. No, it's not a problem. We'll pay for them right away. Send me a link. We'll pay for them right now within the hour. I sent him the link. We got the money at 5:23. Mm. Get people to say no. You'd be shocked at the responses you get. Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic. So there's some questions that people have, but what I'm going to ask everyone, save your questions. When we open it up for Q&A, I might ask you to repost them because it's sometimes hard for me to track everything and be present here too. So, so Chris, how might an entrepreneur use these strategies and techniques that you teach to better understand and serve their clients?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, in simply understanding them better will help you serve them. You know, all right, so let's say you're the favorite. And let's say that they're elf, they're not half. They want you to dial into them. You know, you want to be open to a better deal, which is you tailoring your services to them so that it better serves them and it's more lucrative for you. Because first of all, I'm going to presume that everybody on this call believes the same thing that I do, that you over deliver. So first of all, if you're over delivering, you were a bargain of whatever you were charging anyway. Which means if you tailor your service, your good of service, so that it's a better delivery for them, you're worth even more. Yes, you want to get what you do. No, don't be greedy. Don't grab with both hands. But when you provide a service that's worth it, you are entitled to be paid. So the more that you listen to them and understand them, and I'm here to tell you, there are ways that you can tailor whatever you're providing that would be easier for you to provide it, which means it would be more profitable for you and it would be better for them. So be willing to engage in conversations and be open to that. And then, you know, the other crazy thing is there might be something really counterintuitive that'll make it profitable for you in unexpected ways. And one of my favorites is, you know, our mutual friend, Dan Sullivan. And he's talking about his book deal. He's talking about listening to me, never split the difference. And we pay
Hi,
people.
sorry, I pushed the wrong button.
We pay people what they ask. No, I don't pound people on price. So Dan turns around and gives every dime of the book proceeds to Dan and Tucker.
Ben
and Tucker. Sorry, Ben and Tucker. And then Ben and Tucker says, Dan got the last drop of my blood. When you're not greedy on the price term, what the other side gives you back might be worth 10 times what the dollars were worth. And those guys, I think Ben and Tucker would die for Dan.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's see the beauty of Dan too is, and I think it's one of the reasons. I mean, heck, me and Dan have done podcasts on this. Is we like reciprocal people. You know, we like people that are generous. We like people that are useful, and it's just so much easier to that's what an ELF person is. People keep asking, what does ELF mean? ELF is easy, lucrative, and fun, and half is hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. It's actually a term I got over 20 years ago from my friend Mark Schneider, who unfortunately passed away earlier this year. But I heard him say ELF years ago, and I said, I'm going to develop that into something, because I started thinking of all the different business methodologies you can use in terms of marketing and the stuff that me and Dean Jackson teach on I Love Marketing. It's ELF marketing. It's automated. It's robotic. But then I started thinking, how do you can filter everything through an ELF filter? What are people? What are projects? What are things that you're doing? Are they easy, lucrative, and fun, or are they hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating? Sometimes people can be hard, annoying, lucrative, and frustrating. Not all money's created equal. So ELF is a really great filter, and I'm super happy, Chris, that you're referring to that, because I think it just offers some framing. So yeah, I mean, this is once you become skilled at utilizing what Chris is teaching and what he's talking about here, you will find a lot of things in your life that were difficult become more ELF, and that's the whole goal, is to bring ELF to people in all areas of their entrepreneurial endeavors.
So I'm gonna jump in real quick, because there's one more tangent I want to go on to on half and ELF. Okay. Before you fire your half clients, and we just shifted into this recently. We got a couple of deals that were proposed to us, and they were half deals. Before we walked away, and I had this conversation with my son, Brandon, and everybody else in our company when it came up. I said, what's the counter offer that would make this an ELF deal? Before we walk, maybe they don't know that this is half. Maybe they don't understand it. And there's a pretty good chance of the chances are that they're going to offer you a half deal because they don't know any better. They can't help themselves. There's a whole bunch of reasons. I said, let's counter with what would make this an ELF relationship. At that point, there's no doubt in anybody's mind what we're looking for. And they have the option to take it or leave it. And we have the option to take it or leave it. And we turned a couple of deals around with that by simply countering, instead of saying goodbye, so long, we said, all right, here's what would work for us. Here's what would make us want to do business with you forever and make us want, 10 years from now, look back on the last 10 years and say, that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And we threw it out there. And the batting average is actually pretty high on that. You know, we don't counter offer their offer term by term. We construct what would be great for us and how we would love to do business with them before we walk. And you'd be surprised at how many people will embrace that because they just didn't know any better.
Do you ever have situations, Chris, where you look outside of the scope of what will be the immediate terms that are on the negotiation to draw in other things that might tip things some way or be an influence? I was just thinking about that, how,
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I'm glad you brought that up. We're trying for that all the time. And, how do you know what you don't know?
Mm-hmm.
What we'll do is we'll start to say, let's brainstorm this a little bit. Like, here's some ideas that people have gotten in the past.
Mm-hmm.
We start throwing out wacky stuff that people brought up. And that will kick their brain into gear. So yeah, try to kick them into a collaborative brainstorming process to look for how to get outside the scope. But I mean, I love that question because that's absolutely what everybody should be doing.
When we talked, he said, is there anything new and exclusive that you could provide to our Genius Network members? And I said, well, I'm writing a new edition of my book, Influence. And I have to say, that book has been very kind to me. Sold a lot of copies, a lot of languages. I was in Poland a while ago, and I have a colleague there, Professor Wilhelmina Wosinska. She said, Bob, your book, Influence, is so famous in Poland, my students think you're dead. And I thought that was an affirming yet sobering observation on the success of the book. And that's one reason I decided to write a revision, something new, because I wanted people to know I'm still kicking, I'm still thinking. And so I just finished writing the chapter on reciprocation, the principle of influence that says people feel obligated to give back to those who have first given to them. And I thought, well, there were several new pieces of information I thought I could share. And as we go through it, I hope you'll think about these insights and see if they're available for you to use in your own businesses. But let me just provide a first example that sort of takes us through a validation of how this principle works. There was a study done in a candy shop in Southern California. One day, for half of the visitors who came in, the manager met them at the door, greeted them warmly, and escorted them to the candy counter. For the other half, he met them, greeted them warmly, gave them a small piece of chocolate, and escorted them to the candy counter, where they bought 42% more candy than those who didn't get a piece of chocolate. And you might explain that in ways other than the rule for reciprocation, that people felt that they had to give back after they had received. You might say, well, maybe they liked the chocolate and they wanted more of it. But if you look deeper into the data, the majority of those 42% more people who bought chocolate who got chocolate, didn't buy more chocolate. They bought some other kinds of candy. So it wasn't what they had been given, it was that they had been given something that caused them to change their purchase decisions up to 42%. So what we know from that is that the act of reciprocation the act of giving triggers an act of reciprocation. But that doesn't mean that what we give is unimportant. Right? Just because people get triggered,
Here's what the newest research shows about what you can give first to your customers, your clients, your partners, your colleagues, that will cause them to want to give back to you at the highest possible levels, that will cause them to be ready to give back to you, be standing on the balls of their feet, waiting for the opportunity to give back to you in a major way. There are three things, three features. If what you give is unexpected, it's not just part of the normal exchange. You know how you get a holiday greeting card and you send one in return? That's not unexpected. That's just normal exchange, right? Something that's a surprise elevates the willingness of people to want to give back to you. Secondly, is if what you give is seen as meaningful by the recipient, that you've gone to a step to give something to them that's meaningful, right? Then they want to give something meaningful in return to you at a higher level. And finally, if what you've given is personalized or customized to their identity, to their preferences, to their current needs or challenges, through the roof. They want to give back to you for that kind of kindness, right? Okay, so let's take some examples. Here's the first one that has to do with unexpected gifts. There was a supermarket chain that sent coupons to their shoppers regularly in the mail, and sometimes they would include a coupon for a free gift, a free half-gallon of milk at the store. What they were disappointed in is that many of these shoppers who redeemed the coupon didn't then buy more other things, right? So, that is, their total spend wasn't increased by the fact that they got a gift, right? So they tried something by a consultant, not me, told them about the research that shows when people get an unexpected gift, then they're more motivated to give back at high levels. So they did an experiment where one day, everyone who came into the store got a coupon, a surprise coupon for a half a gallon of milk. Those people, their total spend went up by 10%. Do you know what 10% increase in total spend for a supermarket is? It's unheard of, right? Because the gift they got was a surprise. So what's the implication for you? If you're working online with people, send them a coupon out of the blue for one of your popular items or services, something, at least a discount for it. They're going to feel, from that surprise, more obligated to give something back to you. Okay, so that's the idea of something unexpected elevates the power of the rule for reciprocation. How about this meaningful thing? Let's go inside your organization. Suppose you have an idea, an initiative that you're in charge of. And if it is successful, it'll elevate the outcomes of your organization. It will elevate your reputation within it. All right. And you want the people inside your organization to get on board to embrace this. And you send them information about this new initiative, and you want them to incorporate it into the way they behave. Is there anything you can do to ensure the likelihood that they will do that? Here's a study that was done in the UK that gives us an example. It was done by the British National Employment Service Office, who tried to get people who were not working, who were unemployed, to apply for and appear for interviews for a new job. And a lot of these folks, they weren't interested in getting off corporate, off welfare. They liked getting their unemployment, and they didn't show up for these interviews. They would be scheduled for interviews, and they just were no-shows. What the researchers asked the office to do is, instead of just saying to these individuals in a letter, we have scheduled an interview for a job at such and such a time on such and such a date with Mr. Jones. Here's the time and the place. Please appear. They said in the letter, here's what we did to secure that interview for you. We called the office. We got a return call. We talked with the supervising manager. The supervising manager saw what was the most appropriate fit for you. We contacted that person and we made this appointment. In other words, they talked about the effort that they had gone through to get the appointment. And as a consequence, people spent the effort then to appear for it. They gave back in true reciprocal form what they had received. So, what's the implication? In your initiative, you need to tell people who you want to expend effort to get on board the effort that you expended to develop the initiative. How many months it took, how many meetings it involved, how much interplay and revision of the initiative occurred before I'm presenting it to you now. That will cause them to be spurred more likely into action. Okay, so that's unexpected and meaningful. What's seen as a meaningful effort that you undertook to provide that gift or service first, right? Or favor. How about the last of these issues? Personalized, customized to the identity or the preferences or the challenges of the recipient.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
I like this one. This is the one I think is more important than the other two combined. If you can convince people that what you're giving represents something for them personally, has been customized for them, right? They will want to give back to you for you and your outcomes. I have a friend who's a consultant who told me about a problem she was having with a particular client, a particular customer who was notoriously a slow payer. When she would send an invoice, and this was true of all of her friends in the industry as well, it would be typically about 6 months before he would pay. And she said, what can I do about this? What do we know about influence? I said, well, what do you know about this guy? Right? And she said, you know, he lives in a different city, and I really can't find very much about him, except that I know that he's an art lover. So here's what we decided to do. When she sent the next invoice, before she did that, she went to the art museums and galleries in her town where he would not have had access, right? And she got a little postcard that depicted one of the exhibits there at the museum that he wouldn't have been able to see. And she wrote on the back of it, from Anna, right? And enclosed it with the invoice. I got an email from her. She said, you won't believe this. That postcard cut the delay in receipt of our money in half. We went from 6 months to 3 months for the cost of that postcard, right? Because it was personalized to something that she knew he liked, and then it was inscribed to him by her. Now, she didn't need me for this. She took the next step. She found out that not only was he an art lover, he collected modern art. So, the next time, and the time after that she sent him an invoice, right? She included a postcard of a piece of modern art that he wouldn't have had access to, right? Now, this time she didn't write me an email, she called me. She said, "You won't believe this. I'm getting paid immediately. Immediately. And all my friends want to know, how did you do this?" And she said, "I'm not telling them. But I'm telling you. You know how this will work now. With an invoice, include something so that in the moment that invoice is opened, there's a gift." The rule for reciprocity dominates that situation right there. And that man, in this case anyway, succumbed to the rule of reciprocity. He wrote a check in that moment, right? And I think that's important for us, right? When we give anything, right, if we personalize it, it becomes more valuable. Here, let me ask, I'll give you one more example. It doesn't have to be just with a preference, it can be with a person's identity. How many of you have seen, or maybe your companies do this, that you give gifts to customers and clients, like a pen, right, with your company's name on it, a calendar at holidays with your company's name on it. How many of you have seen that or actually participated, right? It's the wrong name. I'm sorry. It's the wrong name. It's your name, not that customer's name, not that prospect's name. And that's what happened to me. When I get things like this is from some company, right? I throw it in the drawer with 50 other pens, with 100 other, with all these other names on them. And then I had one customer who gave me this pen that has my name on it. My name on it. It's for me. And on the other side is their name. And you know what I do with this pen? I carry it wherever I go. And every time I take out this pen, I notice and I remember the gift, the personalized gift that was given to me. Right? It wasn't an advertising device. It was a gift, a personalized gift. Everywhere I go, it's in my pocket. You know how much this costs to do? Now you might say, "Come on, I've got thousands of customers. How about for your best customers? How about for your biggest customers? It takes about $3 to do that. Are your biggest customers worth that? I think so. Okay. Let me give you, I'm going to finish now. In this new book that I'm writing, we have something called readers' reports, where people who've read the book, Influence, write to me. I ask them to write to me with examples of how they've seen one or another of these principles used on them or by them with great effect. And as regards the principle of reciprocity, here's a reader's report that I got from a guy in Australia. Here's what he says. "Not long ago, we moved to Australia, where my 5-year-old daughter has been struggling to adapt to the new culture and find new friends. Recently, on walks around the neighborhood with my wife, she tried leaving gifts in neighbors' letter boxes. These were really just drawings, scribbled in crayon and then folded and taped together into a letter addressed to my new neighbors from Carly at, and then she included her address. And this guy goes on to say, I thought it was pretty harmless, and I was more concerned that it might be perceived as a nuisance. I worried that we would be known as the phantom letterbox litterers. Then funny things started happening. In our mailbox, we started finding cards, proper Hallmark cards, addressed to my daughter that cost anywhere from $3 to $5 a piece. Then packets of sweets and small toys started appearing there. If it wasn't for reading your book, I wouldn't have understood this, but the power of reciprocity is unbelievable. She now has a group of friends she plays with in the park across the road every day. Why I like this story is, you see, each of the three features that amplifies the power of the rule for reciprocity was included in those small gifts, as tiny as they were. They were unexpected. Suddenly there's a letter in the box from this little girl. It was meaningful because she created those letters herself, right? She went to the effort, right? And customized for my new neighbors from Carly. Lovely. I love that example. So if we can all do that, take that counsel, right? I'm sorry. If we, I don't think this is working either. No. Hello? No. I'm going to use my old professor voice and just shout this out. If we all can do this, right, we will dramatically leverage the power of what we give first if we can include one or another of these principles. And if we can include all of them,
I'll get close to you so we can.
yeah, and if we can include all of them,
Really?
yeah. Then everybody wins. Everybody wins. People get gifts, services, and favors that are for them, that benefit them, that give them joy, and they give back to us what's warranted from those kinds of resources. Thank you very much.
Okay. We good?
Yes.
All righty. What did you think of Robert?
Thank you.
What I'd like to do, I'm going to sit down with you and ask you some questions for a few minutes here. And so we'll get the other stool over here.
Great.
Thank you so much. Okay. Are we too far apart or is this good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, so is there a way to take the lights down for just a moment? Up here, these ones. I want to be able to see the audience and not have it be too bright. Okay, and I'm going to do some, since you're here with Dr. Robert Cialdini at Genius Network, and how many of you have made money or dramatically improved your business as a result of Dr. Robert Cialdini's work? Okay.
Oh, wow. Makes me feel great.
Awesome. I mean, I don't know anyone that's made more marketers money, which I think in a lot of ways, your intention when you first did all of this research was to teach people not only how to use ethical influence, but not get taken advantage of by people. So you make such an emphasis on the ethical use of influence, and in the marketing industry, there's a lot of snakes. I mean, there just simply aren't. So I've always appreciated how much emphasis you put on the application of all of the research that you've done. Anything you want to speak to about that?
You know, that's a big issue for me. It has always been a big issue. But it seems to me that being ethical can lead. We always say, well, it's a trade-off. You're ethical. You might lose in the short run, but you gain in the long run. I think that's true. But I think if you use these principles ethically and wisely, you win in the short run as well as the long run. I'll give you an example of one of the principles in the book is scarcity. People want more of those things they can have less of, anything that's dwindling in availability. Last time I bought a big screen TV, I was in an electronics shop. I wasn't really looking for a TV, but I saw one on the shelf that I knew got great ratings in Consumer Reports, and it was on sale. And as I was standing looking at it, a salesman came up to me and he said, I see you're interested in this set at this price. I can see why it's a great deal, but I have to tell you, it's our last one. Your last one? And he said, yes. And I just got a call from a woman from Scottsdale who said she might come down and get it this afternoon. 20 minutes later, I'm wheeling out of the and I'm supposed to be the doctor of influence.
Yeah.
Right?
It's so funny because you know this and it's still.
I know it,
Yeah.
but here's the thing. On the dimension of ethics, if that was the last one, I wanted that man to use the scarcity principle on me genuinely. Because if I went back to back home to think about it and then came back the next day and it was gone, I would have said, why didn't you tell me it was the last one? That's a piece of information I wanted to know about a valuable resource here, a good deal. I want to know when it's scarce. I want to know when there are competitors, and I want to know when it's dwindling in availability, right? So people using, all of us, using these strategies honestly, right? There are allies. There are allies in the exchange. We're informing people into yes. We're not deceiving them into yes. Now, if that man was lying, it wasn't the last one. There were 10 more in the back room, and when I took mine, he just went and put another one on the shelf and used the same strategy. Then he's not my ally, he's my antagonist.
Right.
He's my rival in this process. So I went back the next day to see, was there an empty spot? There was. There was. And so I went back to my office now and I wrote a glowing review for that shop and that man because he was my ally. He was my collaborator in this exchange. That's how I would like all of us to act, by using these principles so we educate people into assent.
Yeah, I remember this story from years ago where this, I read it a couple decades ago about a man that took his 2 kids to a movie theater, and I think the kids, one was like, 11, the other one was like 13. And he said, I'd like, 2 adults and 1 child. And the person behind the ticket counter, this is before the internet of buying tickets, said, sir, I would have not known your son was 1 year older than the child's age. You could have got, an adult ticket and two children. He goes, yes, you wouldn't have known, but they would have known. And it always reminded me, ethics is about you, not about what you can get away with and that sort of stuff. Yeah. And so there's, and your knowledge and research is so powerful in the right hands, and in the wrong hands, it could be very dangerous. And that's why you've always been very good about.
Can I just add an addendum to your story? Not only would his kids have known, he would have known.
Yeah.
He would have known that he's a cheater. Mm-hmm. That's not how we want to think of ourselves.
Right.
Why would we ever, for that momentary lift in success, degrade the way we have to think about ourselves in terms of self-concept? That the only way we succeed is by cheating? No. We can do it with these principles and an understanding of human psychology and win in the short run as well as the long run.
Yeah, and I do believe in karma, and I believe, people that are not willing to operate that way, their punishment is their own existence. So let me ask you a couple of things. What is the most important rule for persuasion, or persuade? Let's do persuasion first, and then I want to ask you about persuasion.
So the most important rule for persuasion, of course, what do you put into your message to get people to move in your direction? I guess we can answer it in terms of a colleague of mine, a marketing professor at University of Florida, who set out to find the single most powerful persuasive appeal. What works best across the widest range of circumstances and populations and so on. This is your go-to strategy. Use this one and you will be more successful than any other strategy, right? So he went and he started investigating this, and I saw him about 2 years later at a conference. He said, "Bob, I found it. I found the single most effective persuasive appeal. It is not to have a single persuasive appeal." That's a fool's game. To think that the same strategy is going to be optimally effective across all circumstances, all sets of conditions, all populations, all experiences with the buyer that you've had or relationships, it's silly. What you have to do is use the principle that's or the appeal that's most appropriate for that situation in that time. That's the most successful persuasive approach.
Gotcha. Okay, so for persuasion.
Now for persuasion.
Oh, and define persuasion.
Persuasion is the ability to move your audience into agreement with your message before they encounter it. That is, get them in a state of mind whereby they are receptive or sympathetic to the core elements of your message before they get to your message. Let me give you an example. Do you know that there was a study that showed that if people go into a wine shop, right, and there is German music playing, they become more likely to purchase German wine. If there's French music playing, they become more likely to purchase a French vintage. The concept is put in their mind. The idea of things that are German or French is in their mind, top of conscious. Now when they get to the choices, that focus on what they experienced first guides their behavior into the sales setting. I don't know if anybody remembers what song was playing when I came on this stage. They asked me, what song would you like to be played onto the stage with? Anybody remember it? It was Think by Aretha Franklin. See, I'm a public speaker these days, and most of the time when I get on stage, people play loud, upscale, highly energetic music. I'm not that kind of speaker. I'm not that kind of speaker. I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm an informational speaker. I'm an educational speaker. I don't want people thinking about energy and drive, and so I want them to take a step back and think about the content. And so that's the song I get played onto. In the same way that it's like German music, you're more likely to follow the concept that has first been made prominent at top of mind. Your behavior is likely to flow in that direction. And here's the concept, I think, the great psychologist Daniel Kahneman won the Nobel Prize in economics a few years ago, said, in his view, the most important idea that he would want people to know, right, is nothing is as important as you think it is while you are thinking about it. In other words, when if a communicator can get you to think about a particular concept, French, right? That causes you to overestimate its importance to you, right? Because it's top of mind. And as a consequence of that overestimation, you will move in the direction of it. So what persuasion is about is the ability to change the state of mind that your customer is in, or your recipient of your message, so that it aligns with the core features of your message before they experience it.
So what I'm going to talk about today is how to use ethical influence and persuasion to get more people to say yes. And, usually when I talk about this kind of stuff, most people are focused on marketing. I teach a lot of people about copywriting and marketing and sales, face-to-face sales and things like that. But one of the things I want you to know is this is not just about business, which I think is really fitting for Genius Network. These are the kinds of things that you can use in everyday life. And a lot of times when I speak, I get people that, they want to know the magic words. I'm an NLP guy, right? It's all about linguistics. They're like, tell me the right sentence to say for this and, this and that. It kind of reminds me of, back when Evan Pagan used to do the double your dating thing. I was an affiliate for his probably 20 years ago. And he would get guys all the time going, tell me the pickup lines. What do I say to girls to make them like me? And he would say, I'm not going to teach you pickup lines. I'm going to teach you how to be a better man. Then you'll naturally be more attractive. And that's kind of the I thought about all the things that I could teach in, 25, 30 minutes today. And that's kind of the tack that I'm going to take is I'm going to go a bit meta on influence and persuasion. And you'll be able to apply this to anything that you do. It's not necessarily about the individual language patterns. There are a lot of them. You can learn language patterns. This is more going to be about how to think about how you speak to people in a way that will get them to say yes in every area of life, every context of life. So I'm kind of new to Genius Network. My wife, Kayla, and I, we joined in January. Don't know a lot of people yet. So I'll just spend a second kind of telling you where I came from and how I got here. This is where it all started for me. Back in 1995, I started a company called Liquid Mirror Software. I was what we affectionately called back in the day a shareware author. Try before you buy software. And I actually got into business for a really weird reason. I was 20 years old. I was fresh off the streets being homeless. And my girlfriend, who I'd only been dating for a few weeks, got pregnant. And I had no ambition in my life. I didn't have a high school degree. I didn't have really any skills other than the fact that I was a hobbyist programmer. And I knew I needed a career. I knew I needed to take care of this, new human being that was coming into the world, who's about to turn 30, which is crazy to me. And, I was a security guard making $6 an hour, which was a lot of money for me. I mean, I think minimum wage at the time was $4.50. So $6 an hour is like, wow, I was making it. And I knew I needed to do something, and really programming was the only skill that I had. And this new thing had been coming out called internet programming. You didn't need a degree to get into it. But everywhere I went, I would give them my resume and they'd say, well, you don't have experience. Come back when you have experience. Nobody would hire me. And after probably 20 or 30 interviews, I was finally like, how am I going to get experience if nobody hires me? And I came up with this idea. What if I came up with my own software company and I published my own software title and then put that on the resume? Then I've got experience and people will have to hire me. And I had this little program that I had written. It was called Send to Anywhere. And it was a file utility. It would help you copy and move files around in Windows. And I published that out there, and really it was the only purpose was to get it on the resume. And it took off and it did really well. And it did help me get my first job. And then that was my side gig for a number of years. And about a year later, I started getting featured in newspapers, magazines, and I started realizing I should really figure out how to market this thing. Maybe I don't have to have a day job, And so that's where I used to get these 3M floppy disks at CompUSA and duplicate them and put the stickers on them. And that's where I started. That was my first website. Back in 1995, that was my earthlink.net free 10-page website that I had there. It was beautiful. I ended up with a better one later. Started one of the very first shareware networks. If you ever downloaded shareware software in the late 90s and 2000s, you probably downloaded from one of my sites called the Shareware Junction Network. Had one of the very first file hosting companies out there, SW Mir, years ago. In 1998, everything changed. I was at the county fair in Orange County, California. And my friends and I would go there every year, primarily to see the stage hypnotist, a guy named Mark Usick. And I think he's one of the best stage hypnotists on the planet. And I was sitting there in the audience and enjoying the show like I did every year. I mean, we would go pretty much just to see him, but I didn't believe in hypnosis. I thought it was all, a put on. I thought the people on stage were drunk or idiots or just paid to be on stage or something like that. But I loved the show. But at the end of the show, he was selling these tapes. And he's going, step right up, get your tapes, 3 for $20. And all I wanted, I didn't believe in hypnosis. I was super skeptical, very logical guy. And, I believed the kind of hypnosis that they put out in Hollywood and cartoons where people are sort of controlling others and their eyes, spin and stuff like that. But I had $20 in my pocket and I just really wanted to hear what was on these cassette tapes. So I walked up and I said, I'll take it, slapped down my $20 bill. He goes, which ones do you want? I looked down in the case and the first one that jumped out at me was Quit Smoking. At that time, 1998, I was 25 years old. I was smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day and I was hopelessly addicted to cigarettes. From the time that I graduated high school and really got some freedom, being out of the house a lot, I really just started smoking more and more and more. By the time I was 21, I was smoking 3 packs a day. There was a time where I actually rolled cigarettes and I would smoke filterless cigarettes just to get even more of a rush out of it. And I tried everything I could to quit smoking. Nothing worked. And so I bought this silly little tape. About 3 weeks later at home, I popped it in and listened to it. The curiosity finally got to me and everything changed. I woke up the next morning and never touched another cigarette again. I barely had a thought of a cigarette after that night that I literally fell asleep listening to the tape. And it was so effortless for me to quit smoking that it actually took me 3 days before I realized that something had changed. And it dawned on me that I hadn't had a cigarette in 72 hours. And that was the moment when I went down a rabbit hole that I'm still going down rabbit holes. I fell in love with the subconscious mind and how it works. I started reading everything that I could find on hypnosis. That led me to neurolinguistic programming, social psychology. And in late 1998, it really began to fuse into my marketing. And I began to play around with these ideas of things like conversational hypnosis and embedded commands and anchoring and using these things in my marketing to such an extent that by 1999, 2000, I was actually writing copy for other people. I'd never been trained as a copywriter. I'd read some books. Of course, the Joe Sugarman book, was the one that really got me started. If anybody's ever read that, if you've never read that, it's definitely one of the top books to read on copywriting, the slippery slide principle, right? And, really helping other people as well. And it was great because, working with other people, I could really see the objective change in their results just by adding a few things. Sometimes I wouldn't even rewrite their copy for them. I would just change a few things or put a little embedded command in that was almost already there. And I just became fascinated with this. So in 2000, I became certified as a hypnotherapist, 2001 NLP. I ran a practice for many years. I'm still a coach till today. We run a coaching practice. But my real love, like my passion, is fusing together, NLP and hypnosis and psychology with marketing, because I really think it's all the same thing. And I think a lot of times people think that marketing is about creative writing, whereas in my mind, it's all about hypnosis. It's all about suggestion. It's all about really getting to the subconscious mind. So today I'm the owner of Transform Destiny. We're the top NLP training company in North America. And also with my wife, I co-own Transform Destiny, and also with my wife, I co-own Influence to Profit. And that's where we teach heart-centered business owners ethical influence and persuasion. I think the most important word of that is ethical. Because I find that most people who are heart-centered business owners, they have something that's going to transform the world in one way or another, or at least transform a life, help a person out, and they just don't know how to get that message across. And that's what I'd love to do, is to help people, number one, craft that message, and then number two, amplify it, teach them how to get that out there. So there's my shock and awe slide. Y'all know you're supposed to have one of those, right? All right, so let's talk about this. And my goal today is I'm going to talk for probably about 20, 25 minutes. I'm going to give you some really good stuff, and then I'll open it up for questions. I know Gina said, we should probably have a question and answer segment. If you don't have questions, or if you want me to go deeper, I've got more content, and I'll go, as long as you want me to, up until the hour. So here's the problem. We live in a high saturation world. This is, I think, in the last 2.5 years, even ever more so a problem. Seth Godin predicted this 22, 23 years ago, right? That the internet was going to change everything about how people consume, about how people learn, that we are so saturated with, just messages, but most of them, it's been estimated that we see between 30 and 90,000 marketing messages a day. Remember the first time I heard that, I thought, well, that's ridiculous. We don't see that. And then I realized, well, my computer says Microsoft on it, is Focusrite on my thing here. I've got Burgers Bagels on my coffee. We probably do, if not tens of thousands, right? We're continually saturated by information and by choices. People are overwhelmed, they're skeptical, and they're cynical. And here's the problem with that. The subconscious mind, which really is the number one player when it comes to getting people to buy things, it takes the path of least resistance. If given two options, and one is easier or quicker or has less resistance, the unconscious mind will tend to pick that one. And this is where a lot of people's procrastination comes from, right? Is people set up situations where the easier thing to do is to not do what they have to do. and the unconscious mind will always influence you in that direction. The result is this: these days, people's default answer is just no. It is literally the easiest thing a person can say. And it really doesn't matter how good your intentions are or how good your product or your service is. The fact is that most people will probably reject you, especially if you're only trying to sell to the conscious mind, which is what most business owners and marketers do. So the solution is to learn how to ethically influence and persuade people you interact with. Really, I think all business is about influence and persuasion, but more importantly, it's that word ethical, right? And so we do this by learning how to speak directly to the subconscious mind. This is something I've been fascinated with now for 24 years, and I've dedicated really my whole life to this. Now, people used to think that in order to speak to the subconscious mind, you had to have a pendulum or a hypnodisc, and you had to have a person with spooky eyes that would look at you and, speak in a soft voice, like, what was the old Taco Bell dog, right? You're getting very hungry. If you remember the Taco Bell hypnosis commercial. And the fact is that's not true, right? Formal hypnosis or formal trance is something that is very useful when it comes to doing change work. If you need to quit smoking, lose weight, drop a bad habit, gain a good habit, let go of fears, any of that kind of stuff. Formal trance is great for that. But in 1951, Milton Erickson, who was one of the greatest psychiatrists on the face of the earth, he was also a hypnotist. He sort of made the announcement that you don't need formal trance to speak to somebody's subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is always listening, as long as you know how to speak to it, right? Now, usually when I bring this kind of stuff up, people go, wait a minute, hang on. You're talking about digging into people's minds. And isn't this all just manipulation? Aren't you trying to force people to do things against their will? Well, the fact is this: if we look up the definition of to manipulate, it's a transitive verb. And the definition essentially is to move, especially in a skillful manner. I think all language moves people. Sometimes it moves people elegantly. Sometimes it moves people sloppily. Sometimes it barely moves people. But really, when we communicate with people, we're trying to move them in one way or another. We're trying to move them from one state to another state, from one decision to another decision, from maybe where they are physically in one place to another place, right? We're always trying to move people when we speak. And wouldn't it be great to do that in a skillful manner rather than what most people do, which is, most people, they learn most of their language between 5 and 8 years old in terms of learning how to speak. Most of that you learn between like 5 and 8 years old. And then beyond that, the only thing we tend to do to add to our language is just to learn vocabulary, just to learn new words. Most people don't actually invest time in learning how to skillfully use language, which is a very powerful skill.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
But here's the thing: manipulation isn't the issue, right? What really is the issue is intent. What is a person's intent when using these words, right? When people talk about the word manipulation, usually what they're talking about is a win-lose situation. So I think when it comes down to it, when it comes to influence and persuasion, especially, intention and integrity is a big part of it. And this is why the ethical part of influence and persuasion is so important. Can these techniques be used to create a win-lose situation, or what we might call a manipulation of other people? Of course they can, but all language can do that, right? You don't even need skill to manipulate people, just a black heart. There are people who manipulate all the time just with the English language, right? It doesn't even necessarily require skills. So here's the thing: the challenge with creating win-lose situations, and unfortunately, there are people out there who use neurolinguistic programming in win-lose ways. Most of us know what their reputation is. Unfortunately, they've kind of dirtied the reputation of neurolinguistic programming, where there is a lot of positive that you can take from that. And the challenge with creating win-lose situations is you may get them to say yes, but then they never trust you again. Now, I've been in this business that I'm in right now, Transform Destiny, for 22 years. I have people who've been buying from me for nearly that long, right? To me, and I'm passionate about what I do. I didn't get into business to make money. I got into business because I love what I do. I go down these rabbit holes and I'm compelled to do this. It's my purpose. And then money is the result of it. But there are some people who are, primarily money driven, and they try to use these kinds of tactics and techniques, but they backfire because, that person will only ever buy from you once and will probably poison other people to not buy, right? It's not influence, it's just tricking people. So real influence creates relationships that thrive and flourish as both parties, for both parties as they grow. And I would even stretch that to say that I think that real influence is leadership. If you truly, and Joe's a great example of this, right? Joe went through his recovery and got well himself, and now he helps other people recover. Can you imagine if a person was still stuck in their addiction and charging other people to help them not be addicted, right? It doesn't work well. And that's not to say that it can't work. And that's not to say that there aren't some people who are, pretenders. We were talking about imposter syndrome. I always find it funny that the people who should feel imposter syndrome don't. And all the people who are really the good, genuine, kind people who really can help people are the ones that feel imposter syndrome, right? I think that the true influence is about leadership, right? So that means walking your talk, believing in what you sell. And that, of course, goes even further into making you a more influential person. When you are fully and 100% congruent behind what you're selling, that makes other people want to follow. So really, in essence, ethical influence makes you an excellent communicator. So if you look at the mind, there's a lot of misconceptions about the conscious mind, subconscious mind. A lot of people say we only think with 10% of our mind. It's actually nowhere near that. If you look at the research, and a lot of this comes from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the conscious mind actually only makes up 0.006% of the mind. It's 6/1000th of 1% of the mind. The conscious mind is the other 99.994%. The conscious mind is logical and analytical, which is how a lot of people try to sell and market, whereas the unconscious mind or subconscious mind is emotional and organic. The conscious mind is in charge of accepting or rejecting what it encounters, whereas the subconscious mind is in charge of desire. The problem with trying to sell to the conscious mind is this. Conscious mind is like one of those funny guards that you see. If you've ever been to England and you've been to Buckingham Palace, you get the guards. By the way, don't ever touch them. They're badasses. They will kick your ass hard. Other than that, they won't look at you or move, but they have permission if you touch them to really mess you up. The conscious mind is kind of like one of those guards. It's standing guard outside the gate. And it's the gatekeeper. It's the guard that you see at the Royal Palace. Its job is to filter out the environment and to keep out suggestions. That's really the job of the conscious mind, right? The intention is supposed to be a good thing, but often it's not. Very often it's our conscious mind that prevents us from achieving what we want in our own lives, from taking that chance and falling in love, or from buying the thing that we know is going to help us, or from starting a business, or whatever it is. A lot of times it's the conscious mind that gets in the way and rejects the wrong things. And so what we have to do, we have to learn how to bypass that gatekeeper, right? And if you do, you have access to the vast majority of the mind that's in charge of desire, which is where all buying decisions are made. And there are people who go, what if I'm B2B? What if I'm selling to corporations? Well, you're still selling to a human. Somebody said this at the last Genius Network mastermind, which is, it's still H2H. It doesn't matter if it's B2B or B2C or anything else like that. If you're selling to another human being, desire is always part of the equation. Now, it may not be the desire of, oh, I want this fancy car, but it may be the desire of, I want to make this good purchase decision so that I get praise from my boss and other people think that, I'm a good worker. So there's always desire as part of the equation. So accessing and communicating with the subconscious mind is the key to great marketing and sales. And really the number one thing is desire. It's the driving factor in all sales and marketing. So what I'm going to present to you now, I'm going to kind of go meta on influence. Instead of giving you language patterns, I want to teach you how to think about what you say so that you can choose the language patterns that you probably already know. And this will help you in your copywriting and face-to-face sales and your relationships. My first, by the way, guinea pigs when it came to hypnosis and NLP were my kids, right? My son was 5, my daughter was 3. And using this in my everyday life was how I really began to start to get good at it before I ever even introduced it into business.
And in this talk, Elko will show you exactly step by step how to build your own army of powerful influencers. Elko's title is How to Build an Army of Influencers to Promote Your Products. Please join me in welcoming Elko.
Thank you, Tim. So today I'm going to talk about how to build an army of influencers. So in this picture, you'll see a lot of people that I have no clue who they are, but they all have one thing in common is they're holding up my book. And this is my Dutch book that I'm selling. I've been selling this book for over 8 years. And we've seen a big growth in sales in the last couple of months simply because we started using this technique that I'm going to share with you today. So how does it work? How can you get an army of influencers promoting your book or your product, your offer, whatever it is that you want to offer? Well, it's very simple. What you do is you pay influencers to post about your offer. And this is a book in my case. So let me see. So, and that's it. You just pay people to promote your product, and that's about it. So why would you want to do that? Well, first of all, you can have very fast growth. If you have other people, other influencers, so an influencer could be somebody on Instagram with a large following or not even that big of a following, and they start promoting your book. They put a post or maybe a story where they talk about your book, and then they say like swipe up to get the book. Works very well. So you have fast growth. You have a lot of social proof. So I get a lot of messages from people that I know that send me screenshots of other people that are promoting my book. And again, I don't have a clue who these people are. I'm going to talk about how it comes that I don't have a clue. So what you're going to have is you have a lot of messages from people that say like, hey, everybody is talking about your book, because from a lot of different influencers, they're promoting your product versus, hey man, I see your ads all the time. So also it's very profitable if you do it well. It could be way cheaper than normal ads, than for example, Facebook ads or YouTube ads or stuff like that. So how do you do that? How do you have an army of influencers? Step number one, and I will send all of you guys the step-by-step plan. I'll send it to Eunice and she'll send it to all of you guys. So, but step number one is slide in the DM. The DM is a direct messaging system of Instagram. It's very simple. You ask for their physical address. So you tell them like, hey, I got a free gift, and can we surprise you with a free gift free of charge? Step number two, and very important before you go to step number two, even before you go to step number one, is who, not how. So I said, I have no clue who all these people are. The whole strategy that I'm explaining to you right now, I have not invested any hours of my personal time in it. It's just one person in my team, actually two people in my team that are consistently doing these steps. So it's not my hours. And as we all know, who, not how is the way to grow. So if you want to apply this step-by-step system, I would advise you not to do it yourself, but have somebody that you can trust to do this. And then it can be very profitable. Step number two, first you ask for the address. Step number two is you send the book for free. And you don't charge shipping costs, you just send them the book or your product or whatever it is that you have for free. Step number three, oftentimes, and that's a bonus, that's not step number three, but it's a bonus, oftentimes when they get your book for free or your product for free, they already post it on their social media. Not all of them, a lot of them don't, but a lot of them do as well. So that's a free promotion, but that's not even the goal of this step-by-step plan. Step number 3A, sometimes they respond like, hey man, thank you for the book, that's amazing. And then you respond to their message after they receive the book and you ask if they are open for a paid promo. So you send the book, then they reply on DM like, hey, I got your book, it's amazing, thank you so much. And then you reply and ask them if they want to promote it to their following as a paid promotion. So you just pay them. Or step number 3B is if they don't respond after they got the book, if they don't out of themselves respond, you just follow up, say like, hey, I think you got the package. Did you get it in good order? And what do you think of it? So that's step number 3B. And then you just ask them like, hey man, can we do a paid promotion? And what you then do, if the price is right, you agree. You don't negotiate, but you agree. You never negotiate on the price. You just agree or you don't agree. You're like, okay, it's too much, but thank you so much. So what you see in this image as well is I'll just say like, all right, let's go for it. We're easy partners.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
Step number 5 is pay them fast. So if they say like, yeah, it's $100 or it's $500 or whatever, if they send the invoice, pay within 24 hours, they love it. They'll be like, wow, you're the best partner that we ever had. And then they start promoting it on their Instagram in this case, and then what you have to do is track the sales. So for example, you pay $500, they start promoting, and they see like, hey man, we only got like 14 sales of a book, or we got like 140 sales of the book. That's when you see when you have a winner or not. So is it a winner? Is it a winner? For example, in this case, I don't even know for sure, but we might have paid like $500 for this promotion. And you see, these are book sales, and this is all within 1 hour. And this is within 1 hour. So probably we had like over 100 book sales just from this one promotion. We paid $500, which means that we only paid like $5 per book that we sold. So that's a winner. And if it's a winner, what you're going to do when you have a winner is you schedule another promotion. And this is the goal of this step-by-step system, is when you have an influencer that has a really good engagement with his or her audience, and he or she gets a lot of results for you, then you schedule another promo, let's say other month, the next month, and another promo, and another one, and another one, because they are gold for you. They are like your sales reps, but they're way more effective because they can close in larger amounts, and they're oftentimes pretty cheap. So with this whole system, this is my long-term vision. I want to build an army of influencers that are happy to get paid and happy to promote at any time. So at any time that I want to send out a promo for a new product, a new course, a new webinar, a new offer, a new opt-in page, whatever it is, we send them an email and they promote to their following, and boom, we have omnipresence for years to come. So I want to build an army for years to come. So reasons why I like this. First of all, it costs me 0 hours of my time because I have a who and I have a system, and this is extremely scalable as well. There's almost no technical stuff, no ad accounts, no click-through rates, no nothing. It's just very basic, but it works very well. There's consistent traction around my brand simply because all of these influencers keep on posting about this guy with this book, and he's amazing. And of course, they know the right words to say because we teach them what to say. This is not depending on algorithms, Facebook or Google policy, or whenever your Facebook account is banned or your Google account is banned. Doesn't matter. This is your own asset. Like, your partners are your asset. You'll have consistent sales. So whenever you do this and you do it well, you have consistent sales. So let's say you have a new influencer every day that promotes the book. It keeps on going and going and going. There's no need to ask for a favor. So, you can also work with other people like JV or affiliates, but it's asking for a favor. I'm very bad at asking for favors, and I oftentimes don't like to return the favor if I'm not a big fan of like what they're offering or whatever. But now they can just promote me and we just pay them. It's very good for your follower growth. As you see, they always not just promoting the book, but also promoting my brand. So my ad Ilke de Boer handle. It's growth on demand. Like, you just send them a message and they'll promote for you, and then you have growth on demand. There's unlimited potential. This is just in Holland, and we just been doing this for like 2 months. The potential of this is crazy. And again, this is just Holland. Like, it's super small, but it's been super effective already. So I got some bonus tips for you. Bonus tip number 1 is you got Instagram posts. So in the timeline of somebody on Instagram, but you also have Instagram stories, and stories is where they can say swipe up. And stories, they work much better than Instagram posts. So we have much better results if people promote on their stories, and they oftentimes would like to promote on stories. They prefer to promote on stories as well. So that's a good thing. Bonus tip. So that's the difference between a post and a story. On the left, you see a post, which is good, but on the right, you see a story, and then they can swipe up, which is even better. Bonus tip number 2 is give influencers clear instructions, but challenge them to be creative. So I teach. So I have an audio. You see at the right, you see I made a little audio of a couple of minutes where I explain to them what I like to see whenever they're promoting. And so I give them a 3-step thing. So step number 1 is that they're in screen and they're having my book in their hands, and then they talk a little bit about what impact I made on them or the book made on them. And then they talk about the reason why people can get the book now for free. It's because there's some spelling mistakes in the book. And then they need to say swipe up. So I got a simple 3-step plan, and most of them, they follow it and converts very well. Bonus tip number 3 is give your who the permission to close deals. So I told my who, so I have 2 who's who are doing this. I told them, like, you decide on the deals. I mean, if it's really large deals, like 1,000 euros and up, or 2 or 3 or 4,000 euros and up, just ask for permission from me. But anything up to $1,000, you decide to close the deal. And I'll get the invoice and I'll pay the invoice. And afterwards, we will see if it worked, yes or no. So this is how you learn quickly. So I just trust, but I verify afterwards if they are great deals. Bonus tip number 4, very important, something that a lot of people don't see and don't think about, is you got micro influencers. So for example, people with 8 to 80,000 followers on Instagram. You also got like the bigger influencers, like 100,000+ followers on Instagram. We noticed that the micro influencers have way better engagement with their following, very good results. They tend to want to work harder for you, so they have better promotions. They're more happy with a promotion because they're smaller, and they're way, way cheaper. So let's say somebody with like 10,000 followers is not 10 times cheaper than somebody with 100,000 followers. It's oftentimes like 20 times cheaper, but the results are like way bigger compared to the amount of followers. Bonus tip number 5, think outside of your target market. So this is a famous Dutch guy. He's a hip hop artist, and this is crazy. Like he has a good amount of following, like 50 or 60,000 people. And on the left, so on the right, you see him with my book, and on the left he says, and this is Dutch again because I didn't have the time to translate, but he says, I just smoked a big fat blunt and I've been thinking, and then he starts to pitch me, so which is very funny. This is outside of my target market. I'm not, my target market is not potheads, not people who smoke a lot of weed, but he has a big following, and they really love him. He has good vibes, and a lot of people, based on his promotion, started buying the book, and he already promoted twice for us. So he's a great partner. The crazy thing is, again, he only charged $100, and he got like 50 or 60,000 followers. Bonus tip number 7, use a second Instagram account for your who, so you keep your personal Instagram account safe. So I don't want to communicate from my name when it's not from me personally. So we have a second account, which is on the right, the Winst account. And so my who's are on that account, and they target people, they send them DMs, and they talk about me, but it's not from my personal account. So they're not in my account, they don't see my DMs, all that stuff. And so that's much better. So that's bonus tip number 6. So in closing, why would you want to build an army of influencers, and why could it be an amazing growth strategy for all of us at Genius Network? Well, if you build an army of influencers that are happy to get paid and happy to promote at any time for years to come, you will have amazing results. It costs literally 0 hours of your time if you have a who. There's almost no technical stuff. You will have consistent traction around your brand. It's not depending on algorithms or Facebook or Google policies or bans or all of that stuff. You will have consistent sales. No need to ask for a favor because you simply pay them. You'll have a lot of follower growth because they're mentioning your name, as you see here. There's growth on demand. So anytime you want to grow, you just have them promote your product or your offer. There's unlimited potential. And again, this is just Holland. Imagine going bigger. So there is so much gold out there. You just have to be willing to pick it up, or have some who's that can pick it up for you.
You know, there's my buddy Tom Bilyeu, who has like a podcast. He spoke at last year's Genius Network annual event. He did an interview with Dr. Drew, and he talked about change. And the great thing about it is that what Dr. Drew, who may write the foreword to our book that I've got coming out, The Miracle Morning for Addiction Recovery, doing with Hal Elrod and Anna David. So that book will be out next year. And one of the things that he talks about is disgust. So on the wall here is one of my favorite quotes, which is, be willing to destroy anything in your life that is not excellent. And the thing about that is that in order to change something, you have pre-contemplation, you have contemplation, you have execution, and then you have maintenance. And being willing to destroy anything in your life that is not excellent requires you first to think about it and to contemplate it. And then you have to actually do something. And then once you do something, you have to maintain that something. And so in order to change, the difficult thing with change is not just doing it, it's maintaining it. And so what's always funny to me is all the New Year's resolutions that people make. And I was talking about this before we started the meeting in our conference room back there. And that you have people that will make goals, I'm gonna eat better. And they do for either a few days, few hours, few weeks. I'm going to join the gym. I'm going to get a gym membership. I'm going to start working out. I'm going to do this thing in my relationship. I'm going to do this thing with my kids or whatever. And then as most human beings, they, just stop and they don't maintain it. And so what I would encourage you to look at is what disgusts you so fucking much right now that you're like, I'm just so done with this. Now, you're going to have to contemplate that. You're going to have to think about that. But if you get yourself, now the difference between disgust and shame though, is that disgust, you're just kind of disgusted with it. Shame though, you're not going to be motivated with shame because that's I'm a bad person. And that's the thing that I've learned with being an addict is addiction thrives on shame. Addiction has an appetite for destruction. Addiction will actually make you do bad things. Disgust may cause you to change. And if you are just okay with it, you're probably not going to do much. So if you really want to affect change, now one of the best ways to do that is to put yourself around people that are doing great shit, because then it forces you to look at, they seem to be capable. I mean, one of the biggest motivators for me was when I was a dead broke carpet cleaner living off credit cards. There's this guy who works, this guy I went to high school with, who's working for a guy in Mesa, Arizona, who's an alcoholic that treated his, and I feel bad because he's an alcoholic. I mean, addiction comes out of pain, and hurt people hurt others. And this guy was a really bad person, but he had made $600,000 the previous year, and here I am working my ass off going broke. And that disgusted me. I'm like, what the hell? What is the deal? What does this guy know that I don't? And he, and so it's all how you use it. I mean, your whole life is just a series of raw material sitting around waiting for you to put the ingredients together and to produce a certain result. And be it good habits, bad habits, I think everyone has habits. And if you wake up in the morning and you wake up late and you eat 2 Egg McMuffins and you smoke 10 cigarettes and you guzzle 4 cups of coffee and you kick your dog and you yell at your spouse and you just go around being an asshole, you've just developed really good habits of doing that if you do it every single day, right? So winners find ways to win, losers find ways to lose. And so wherever you're winning in life, you're winning because of the way you're putting together. It's the formula. You have a winning formula. And if you're losing, then you need to change that, discard that, abandon that, do something with it, surround yourself with other people. So the whole concept of moonshots and multipliers is how do you actually embed into your brain. So to go back to Michael, I'd love to ask you this. How does one best let me do a setup here. Now we have a whole book here and I'll forget if I don't do this. So here's a book, all right? Now this book is filled with Genius Network members talking about their moonshots.
Buy one.
And it doesn't just say, what's your moonshot? It says, what is your best business decision? Your best business decision. What is the one thing you feel accounts for your success and how might every Genius Network member benefit from it? What is the biggest tangible performance-enhancing addition, modification, and replacement activity or approach you've discovered and added to your model or marketing in the last year? Who are your current business heroes and non-business heroes? What are 3 things you do differently or better than your competitors that drive your business success? And how might everyone in Genius Network utilize any or every one of those advantages? And what is the single best piece of business and non-business advice you've ever received, and how did it alter your past? So we ask these questions to all these really bright people, and it's freaking phenomenal. Now, when you read this stuff, you actually will probably get inspired. You will probably learn things. You will discover some things. And they give book recommendations. What are the most impactful books? This is $100. All the money we're going to put into Artists for Addicts and Genius Recovery. So it'll go into my recovery moonshot if anyone wants one. These are $100. That requires, though, you to actually influence yourself. So my question to you is, given resources, tools, recipes, how does one influence themselves most effectively?
Okay, So it's a loaded question how we influence ourselves. Every one of us, first off, knows how to do it. We influence ourselves all the time, no matter what, we're always influencing ourselves. If we were influencing ourselves as simple as answering ourselves the question, should I buy that book or not? Is that a good question we can influence ourselves?
In this particular context, that's perfect.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay. I'm getting set up right now. Okay.
And by the way, we can disregard the book entirely and just
either way. If we'll talk the book real quick, and then we'll just throw an idea, because I believe this will make a difference for you. Number one is instantly inside of your brain when somebody asks you to buy something, or whenever you're planning on doing something else, instantly your brain has a chemical reaction that goes off. It's a series of chemicals that go off, and also pictures start to show up inside of your brain. So one of the ways to influence ourselves is, I teach them HIT class. It's a very, very simple technique. It's understanding what state that you need to be in. And I don't mean like Tony Robbins, get yourself in state. I mean literally what state that you need to be in to pull off what it is that you need. A lot of folks don't realize that whenever you're selling something to another person, I'll put it in the context of them and then I'm going to turn it on you really quickly, is the whole purpose of selling or anything is to educate people that it's okay to make a decision and to take down their guard and put them literally, find that neural pathway that they've made a decision before, whether they were on an aisle when they were a kid. Like my daughter did this to me today. She influenced me to buy a dog. I bought a dog today. I told myself I'd never buy a dog. But she looked at me and she said something to me that triggered something in me, abandonment issue. And she found something in me that I don't even really knew I had. And she said, simply to me, I'm going to share this in selling, and you guys can use it any way you want, and then I'm going to talk about influencing yourselves. She said, wouldn't it be nice that when I come home from school, there's a 5-year-old, okay? Wouldn't it be nice when I come home from school that Tara's going to be going to college soon and you're at work still doing what you do, that I have somebody to play with? And I know I'm probably not going to get a dog from Santa, but it would be nice. I bought a dog today, okay? And I spent an hour and a half, I spent 6 hours online and on the phone calling interesting people from places called Paradise, Pennsylvania, okay? Which doesn't seem like paradise at all. Side note. What my daughter did is she put me in that state of mind. So if you want to influence yourself to change a habit or anything else you do, you're never going to change it with thinking about the habit that you want to add. So this is why with addiction, I do work with a lot of people with addictions and different types of things. So let's say you want to get in better shape, or you want to get yourself to pick up the phone more, or do your marketing or do your moonshot or anything. The first thing you have to ask yourself is, what state of mind do I need to be in? So exercise for most people, we'll just start with language real quick. Exercise for most people is something that, or working out for me, was equated to something I talk about doing that I know that I'm capable of doing that I really don't do, that is also linked to insecurity and something I'll quit. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Okay, so what I did is I instantly changed the language on it. And by changing the languages, and this happened 2 years ago when I met with Joe from Spartan Races, I stopped working out. I haven't worked out in 2 years, but I train on a regular basis. By changing the language of what it is that you do, instantly creates a new neural pathway. This is what Joe teaches in marketing. I said, let him teach marketing and everything else. I want to teach it for the brain marketing, how to market to ourselves. So stop trying to get yourself to save money and start looking at it from a different, like I build a second business. That's my financial portfolio. So instead of saving money, I build a second business that I donate money to, and I loan money to it on a regular basis. So I loan money to a second business, which is almost bigger than my regular business, which is my financial thing. So the first thing I'll say, I'm not going to go into a long term on this, is change the language to something which then will change the meaning and changes the neural pathway in the brain. Did that make sense? Did that answer your question? So for instance, a lot of people say they have, like, I watch the dating guys do this. Is anyone in the dating world here? Anybody want to date? Okay. I'm not offering. But the dating guys tell people they have this approach anxiety so they could sell them books. Approach anxiety just means that you don't take relationships seriously. So if you got serious about relationships, that word seriously changes things. And I tell most people, like, you put the word seriously in a context of you really don't take your business seriously. You're not bad at marketing and you're not bad at sales. You don't take your business seriously. If you did, you would find the time to get around the money, to get around the people and do what needs to get done. So that's my 3-second version of that whole thing. So if you want the book, which you probably do, because there's at least 3 to 5 ideas. There's at least one billionaire in that book, right? Okay, there's at least one billionaire you can get a book recommendation or two from. If you want the book, and I have it, and I've read it. I wish I was in it. I forgot to put myself in it. But if you want it, you really have to ask yourself, like, how would you get yourself to get it? Like, what would be the person, like the person you want to be, would they already have the book? Or would you have to really talk yourself into or out of it? So that's the long story short. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great.
So change your language, literally find a different word. and stop trying to diet too, because that's a crappy word. Start becoming aware of what you eat, and I guarantee you'll lose weight.
Okay, I hope you found that video awesome and useful. So if you want to get a free copy of my book, I want you to click here. And if you want to watch some more videos that'll be useful and awesome, click here. Go ahead. You're over here. Do it now. Come on. Thank you. Watch them.